The family. We hear so much about what the society thinks the family should be, could be, will be, all of these different attributes of the family. I'm more interested in what God thinks a family should be, could be, will be, children, wife, husband. So let's jump into what God thinks about the family and his desires and commands for the family is. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming to a sermon. This is the All for Jesus page, and I'm thankful that you're here. Let's just dive right into the word. So let's look at Matthew 5:31 through 32. It has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. So here we're going to jump right off into divorce. I don't think I need to touch on marriage being between a man and a woman, even though that's such a big topic today in our culture. I think for those of us that know the Bible, that submit to the commands of Christ and the commands of God, that's not that big of an issue for us, or at least it shouldn't be. So let me just state right now, marriage should be between a man and a woman. It should not be between a man and a man or a woman and a woman. That's an abomination. That's ungodly. That's sinful. We shouldn't do that. So as Christians, a man and a woman. So let's move on here to divorce. Within the church, this is pretty rampant. This is a bigger deal. There's a lot more people that seem to be okay with divorce. And this essentially is a degradation or a destroying element to the covenant of marriage. You have made that covenant before God and to your wife or to your husband that you will remain faithful, whether in sickness or in health, in richer or in poor. You make all these vows before God and before your spouse, and then you so easily break them. So here's one of the things I wanted to talk about. When you're married, you should not be looking for loopholes to leave your significant other. You should not be looking at this verse and being like, okay, sexual immorality, like, all right, so like all they need to do is do this one thing and I'm out of there. Like, I don't want to be here, but I don't want to leave on unbiblical terms. So let me just wait and see if this happens. And so instead of working on your marriage, you're just hoping the person gives you the green light, biblically speaking, to leave. And that's not what we should be doing either. Now, some Christians don't even care. They'll just, it didn't work out. She burnt the toast. He, doesn't watch enough movies with me. I'm out. It wasn't what I thought. And they just quit. And that's not godly. And here in this verse, and these are Jesus's words, it says very clearly, makes her a victim of adultery. Anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. And so what this would be stating is, if you do get divorced, that man and that wife are now separate under a divorce, and they are not to go and marry anybody else. It's pretty clear here. If the woman, or if a man marries a woman that's been divorced, you're committing adultery. That's a big deal. That's a big, big deal, okay? So I don't know how you can look at this and say, I'm going to do what I want to do. Don't expect things to be blessed then, I guess. If you're going to look at Scripture and you're going to choose and pick and just kind of wish-wash back and forth on what you listen to and what you don't read it at all. Because you either believe it all and obey it all, or you believe none of it and you obey none of it. There's no in-between. There's no lukewarmness. There's none of that. Once you're married, except your wife or husband cheat on you or sexually immoral, or Paul gives an example of, let's say you both were married and you were unbelievers when you were married, and one of you becomes a believer and submits their life to Jesus Christ, and the other one stays a pagan. If the pagan decides, you know what, you're not as fun, you're not the same, I'm not really into this anymore because you've changed, I'm out of here. The Christian has the okay by the Scriptures to let that person go. But the Christian is not to leave. They're to remain in hopes that by their life, they'll lead their unsaved spouse to the Lord. It's all about servant-mindedness. as a married man myself, marriage is not easy. You have to work at it. You have to strive to understand and be who Christ wants you to be in that marriage. And so God feels very strongly about divorce. And so we're going to go to another passage that talks about this in Malachi 2:15. So let's go there. Has not the one God made you? You belong to him in body and spirit. And what does the one God seek? Godly offspring. So be on your guard and do not be unfaithful to the wife of your youth. Now, this is another step forward in this whole divorce process. You notice what he says here, and in the entire passage, I didn't read it all, but it is about divorce and breaking the covenant by divorcing your wife and, running after other women and vice versa. Women are not excluded here. Women can divorce. Nowadays, women divorce their man a lot more than the other way around. So, nevertheless, in this, it actually speaks about the children. What does God seek? Godly offspring. And godly offspring are brought up in a godly marriage where two people are together. See, the unity of a husband and a wife has such an impactful and profound structure upon a child's life. But when a child is a part of a broken home and they go to the dad this weekend and the mom the whole week or whatever the schedule is, it's so hard and it's handicapped that child to be godly, to be raised godly, to have those experiences from their mom and dad being together. There's more of a percentage that child is going to be secular and worldly and pagan because they were brought up in a broken home. So that's all they know. Now, please don't misunderstand me. There are people that come out of that and they're very godly and the Lord got a hold of their life, but it wasn't because of their mom and dad. Sometimes it's because of an outside mentor or another family maybe that came along and cared for that person that was part of that broken home. Divorce is so common anymore that it's almost rare to see a child that's from the original parents that they're currently with. You may have a dad that had a couple children before and he married a woman and now they have children together or vice versa, but it seems rather rare to see a husband and wife and their kids anymore. And those are their kids. So I say all this to say divorce is so multi-layered, right? You're not only destroying your marriage and the covenant you made before God and one another's emotions and scarring them, but you're also destroying your children. You're also destroying relationships that were built through that marriage. And the fact that you care so little about all of these other factors that your marriage unity is affecting, and you're willing to throw your hands up and say, you know what? Screw it. It's a selfish act. It really is. And I'm not saying that a lot of married couples don't think about this, but there's a difference between thinking about it and going through with it. And so I want you to understand that your children depend on you. To raise godly offspring is to be a godly marriage, a godly husband and wife. Your children will emulate you. So if they grew up in a broken home and they have relationships, at some point, if the going gets tough, guess what? They hit the bricks. They're rolling. They don't care. Their mom and dad did it, so I don't care. I didn't see them struggle. I didn't see them in the fire trying to work it out, so why should I? I'm going to take the easy way out. And so often today, that is what we do. We take the easy way out because guess what? It's easy. And I don't want to work for it. And you know what? There's another fish in the ocean and I'll just try it there. And if it gets tough there, I'll leave that too. You see the pattern that creates? It creates a defeatist quitting pattern. It creates a pattern that is good for nobody and not good for you either. For jobs, it shows your character. You're not willing to work at it. You're not willing to stay when it's hard. Now, let us move forward into our last piece of scripture. And all of this is so pertinent because I think today we take marriage so lightly. it shouldn't be taken lightly. It should be taken very, very serious. It's a serious matter. So again, not only should you be taking your marriage serious, but you should be taking marriage itself serious before you get married. And I say this to all of those out there that are considering getting married, or they're courting, or they're dating somebody right now. You really need to take this into consideration if you are a Christian, of what are the ramifications of being married? Like, I know the honeymoon season seems fun now, but like when things really get hard, are you going to be able to push through that? So let's go to Colossians 3:18 through 21. And this is just instructions for a Christian household. Wives, submit to your husbands as it is fitting to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. This is just perfect. If you want to know how a biblical marriage should look, there it is right there. In literally those 4 verses, you see what a biblical marriage should look like. And I want us to notice, the men today in society get such a bad rap all the time. We get hammered. But I want you to notice who gets talked about in these scriptures double. Whose name gets hit twice? Wives, submit to your husbands. Husbands, love your wives. Children, obey your parents. Fathers, do not embitter. The man gets hit twice. He gets 2 things he needs to do. Everybody else gets 1. He bears the heavier load. The man has always bore the heavier load. And he should be before the Lord in fear and trembling, that he would be given the strength to be able to bear that heavier load. And so let's look at this. Wives, submit to your husbands. Women today do not like to hear those words at all. In the church and outside the church, for some reason, there's a stigma around this, that they hear submit, and that means slave. That means oppressed. That means chained in the basement until I need something cooked. I don't understand, but that's just our culture, our nature right now. So biblically speaking, this just means to be under your husband. He is the head. Christ is the top. Man is the head. The wife is under the husband, and the children are under the parents. Now, when I say under, I don't mean less than. I mean the weaker partner. I mean it's just the place that you're in. It's the Bible. I'm just the mailman. I'm giving you the mail. That's what it says. Submit to your husbands. And it would do well for you to do this. Why wouldn't you want to submit to a godly man? If he's truly a godly man and loves Jesus more than you, why wouldn't you want to submit to him? Why wouldn't you want to let him lead, knowing that he's going to lead not only with your best interests at heart, but he's going to be following Jesus in all of this? That seems like a win-win-win-win for you. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Again, men, it's very easy for us to be harsh with their wives. The one person that I would say that married spouses are angry at the most is their spouse, because you spend the most time with them. So it goes to show that it's very easy to do this, and we ought to love them even when it's hard. And that's very difficult. It's difficult for me. I'm no different than any of you. It's difficult to love your wife in the heat of the moment, when it's irritation, but we're commanded to do that, and we need to try our best not to be harsh with them, not to be kind of rough with them. We can have disagreements and things of that nature, but we ought to always go towards reconciliation. There ought to be a forgiving aspect to an argument so that we can come together again in unity. Children, obey your parents, thus pleasing to the Lord. It sets such a big example to the culture around you when your kids obey you. And that has to come with discipline. Discipline is essential in a godly household, period. I don't care what anybody says. Spanking is in the Bible. Making sure your children obey you, and not this nonsense of, I want to have a discussion with them and I want them to express their emotions as a 3-year-old. No, I'm not playing any of that. A child should be told something, and then if they disobey, disciplined. And that's how you build a structure in your house for expectations. I know that if I do this thing, mom or dad is going to get after me because this is not allowed. And those standards have been set, and every Christian household should have those standards for their children, period. Fathers, do not embitter your children. They'll become discouraged. There is a way to go too far with your children. No doubt. I've seen it in others' lives. There needs to be boundaries for sure about not overbearing on your children to where they feel that they can never do any good. And so they just kind of give up and they become discouraged. And then that's not good for anybody, because then they slip into different things of depression or suicidal thoughts. And we don't want that for our kids. So let there be a line. Let there be a point where this is reasonable, firm, but fair, but we don't go too far. We don't discourage them to a place where they never feel like they can ever win. And so we want them to understand that we love you when you fail and when you succeed, and there will be correction when you disobey, but all in love for sure. So guys, I'm glad you were here with me tonight. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you're in your word, and may the Lord bless all of you wherever you are. God bless.